Can't believe this. Like, we're actually here in meet space together. Oh my God. How you doing? How you feeling? Yeah? Like, seriously, this is a thing. This is a thing we used to do in another life. It is so good to be back. It really is. It's like, man, oh man. Like, not to like go on like a weird tangent, but it's like it has been. We've been through some shit, people. Like, seriously. Like, so to come back to this is very life affirming and positive, and we should celebrate that. So I just keep that in mind throughout these next couple days. Has anybody seen this movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once? Yeah. Seriously, go see this movie. Wait until after the conference is done, for respect for everyone, but seriously, go see this. But we're going to be talking about, we'll say sort of themes, at least that GIF really sort of sums up what we're going to be talking about today. Like I said, we've been through some shit last couple years, and I like to think that design systems, or a design system, is like wellness, physical wellness, mental wellness, spiritual wellness, in our post-COVID world, how we're all doing right now. And what I mean by that is, there we go, there's our clicker. It's critically important, right? Almost no one has it. A lot of people like to talk like we have design systems, but we don't. When we talk to other people, we're like, oh, yeah, I totally have that. But deep down, we know we don't have a design system. And also, we're all hurting. How you doing? I'm doing good. No, we've been going through some shit, people. This is a theme. This is a theme for me. Companies pretend to care about it. Companies pretend to care about design systems. Companies pretend to pay lip service to well-being. Achieving it is way harder than it sounds. And also, we desperately need way more time and resources to work on it. So I do encourage you to invest in your design systems as well as your personal well-being. So that's my PSA for you today. So, what is a design system? I'm not going to rehash the sort of basics, but I tend to define a design system as the official story of how an organization designs and builds digital products and digital interfaces specifically. There's a lot of ingredients that go into telling that story. There's design tokens, there's atomic design, there's governance models and team structures and processes and selling and talking about metrics and all sorts of good stuff. And we're going to be doing a workshop on Thursday. We're going to sort of dive into all of the ingredients of that story. But today, we're going to focus on this aspect of sort of themability or flexibility. And what do we mean by that whenever we talk about sort of flexible design systems? Most organizations don't just have a product with a design language to power that experience, right? It's not just like we have a design system for our website, especially as organizations get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I've been working with like a bunch of massive companies for the last decade on this, and it's the bigger the organization, the more needs, the more types of interfaces, the more types of things we tend to build and need, including sort of supporting a lot of different looks and feels. And that sort of requires us, as we're creating design systems, to really build in a level of flexibility into those design systems to make sure that they're able to meet the needs of the users and the organization through software. So this is a screenshot. This is a fun one from a client of mine. I've worked with a number of different clients creating themable design systems. And really what this boils down to, these are all brands. This is from Condé Nast, so big publisher, Wired magazine, Wired, GQ, Vanity Fair, Vogue, all of that stuff. And all of these is just sort of a cross-section of buttons that we found, just kind of doing a quick interface inventory for them. This is wild, right? Because it's like every single one of those buttons represents time, design time, engineering time, QA time, testing time, all of that stuff, right? It represents money, it represents meetings, and just like a massive expenditure of human labor in order to arrive and sort of build all of these different buttons. But when we really think about what is a button really, we're able to sort of strip that thing down, right, to its studs. And what can you do with buttons? Well, you might have a link that looks like a button, right? So it's like an A tag that takes you to another web page, right? It could be an action where you sort of submit a form field or click X out of a modal or sort of something like that. You could have an icon after it. You could have an icon before it. You could have an icon-only button. You could have different shapes and sizes and styles of buttons, right? What do you call these? Like ghost buttons or hollow buttons or whatever knockout buttons you want to call it. Big buttons, small buttons. Block level buttons, right? Buttons that sort of expand to fit the width of their parent container. Buttons that look like hyperlinks, right? The spirit is that no matter what, I bet you any money, your websites, whatever you're designing, you're building, the buttons are doing pretty much those things. There might be a couple edge cases. You might have some sort of funky SVG one that's like a little bit of a one-off. But for your meat and potatoes button component, it tends to take this shape, no matter what the colors are, the border radius value is, and all of this stuff. So what we can do is actually sort of create a system that really sort of shares those bones, that shares that sort of skeletal system between all of the brands that need to be supported, all of the different design languages that need to be supported across the organization. And what you're able to do is just kind of flow a different look and feel through that sort of shared skeletal system. And what this does is get you sort of that like radical reuse out of these sort of components, but it also sort of sets up this theming layer that allows you to support a bunch of things. So that's kind of at a button level. For a publisher, you're going to have a component like this, of course. And you could sort of apply that sort of same mapping of different, sort of flowing different looks and feels, different design languages through the same set of components in order to arrive at different results. And this is starting to get exciting, but then you could actually take it a step further, and whenever you start flowing real content through it, that's when things really get exciting, because you're like, oh, this is the exact same markup, right? It's just we're flowing this sort of different look and feel through all of this stuff. So this is really exciting. If you're familiar with the CSS Zen Garden from back in the day, if you're old, give me a woo. There we go, yes. So CSS Zen Garden, that was it. This is what we're talking about. It's like CSS Zen Garden applied to design systems. So, and the idea is to be able to sort of support multiple brands, sub-brands, right? White labeling of like worked with companies, or they make software and then they sell it to other places that want to put their sort of branding on top of it, right? Supporting multiple generations of a design language. So I was working with a number of clients that need that, where it's like we need to present and sort of have our design system support our current look and feel, but we're also working on the next generation, the next gen theme or whatever, and that allows us to do that. This is a fun one. We're going to dig into that today. Supporting multiple platforms or product families, meaning like the marketing website as well as like more utilitarian applications. And that's one of my favorite ones to dig into, because people go, we can't do that because marketing has different needs than the product teams. So we'll get into all of that. Things like seasons or campaigns, right? If you want like, Valentine's Day theme and stuff like that. You could do that. And then also, of course, talking about dark mode, light mode, things like that. Okay, that's the sort of framing for all of this. The idea is that sort of CSS is the most malleable layer of the stack, right? So what we're able to do is that establish this sort of solid foundation, rock solid HTML, good functioning JavaScript, bundle these things up as nice, neat components. And then what we're able to do is start sort of flowing this stuff through. So here's what we're used to just use like Starbucks as an example, just because everyone can picture a Starbucks screen in their mind. This is what we're used to, right? We basically say, okay, we have these variables. We're going to say Starbucks screen. And then in our usage, we are going to call that, right? We're going to say, okay, our primary button, we're going to make that button background color Starbucks green. Our brand heading, right? So like a branded heading that we want the H1 on our site, for instance, to be Starbucks green. So all right, we'll do Starbucks green. Text input, success. We could even apply our brand color palette to things like success states, right? It's green. Green means go. Green means good. All of that. So we could put that. The problem is, right, now that if Starbucks goes, well, the whole green thing, we're not doing that anymore. And everybody goes, shit. This is going to be, we're going to have to get in here, a bunch of breaking changes. It's not going to be good, right? So what we're going to do is actually sort of get that stuff out of there. We're going to sort of not hard code those things into the components themselves and instead sort of establish its own layer that I'll talk about. And all of this is accomplished via design tokens. Whenever we talk about design tokens, people always ask me, Brad, what's the relationship between atomic design and design tokens? And I'm like, basically, design tokens are like the subatomic particles of our interfaces. And man, oh man, I have a lot of weird conversations in my life, but hey, you know what? My inbox stays interesting. But yeah, design tokens are really like Starbucks green. Like picture Starbucks green in your mind. Like whenever you think about that, you're like, well, okay, but Starbucks green doesn't manifest itself on a user interface in the abstract, right? It's always flowed through a user interface component. So what we're talking about with design tokens is really sort of taking a very sort of canonical look at our design languages. So we have websites, we have web apps, we have native apps, we even have sort of communications things like PowerPoint templates and stuff like that, email templates. And what we're able to do with design tokens is rather than sort of having to sort of map and define Starbucks green or whatever other sort of design language stuff in each one of those products, what we're able to do is actually sort of elevate these things out of any particular implementation and define Starbucks green in a single place, and then sort of convert it into whatever format the products need. This is cool. I'll talk about some tools and stuff to do that in a little bit. But the idea is that you're able to sort of really encapsulate everything that goes into your brand's look and feel, right, as design tokens. So things like colors, obviously, like sort of background colors and content colors and border colors. Obviously, typography stuff, border radius values, box shadows, animation stuff, breakpoints, spacing constants, and stuff like that. What you're able to do is define all of those as design tokens, and then let's say you go, okay, well, border radius 8 pixels. We want that to be the same on our website, our web apps, on our iOS app, our Android app. Publish your design tokens, border radius 8 pixels, and it will sort of feed out to all of those different products. That's pretty cool. That's a nice magic trick. So that's what we're going to talk about, is like how to actually sort of accomplish this, because what that allows is for a way more sophisticated sort of design process and development workflow and stuff. So we'll talk about kind of what this unlocks here in a second. How this works, getting down to brass tacks, is basically this 3-tiered token system. So rather than Starbucks green and we're going to put that on our button, what we're going to do instead is just kind of say, okay, we have this first layer. This first tier of tokens is going to just identify all of our raw ingredients. It's like dumping all the IKEA parts out on the table. It's just like spreading them out. These are available to us. Hopefully we'll use most of them. We might not use some of them or whatever. The idea is that this just defines everything that is available. As a result, you're able to just kind of play this one a little fast and loose, but we tend to sort of do different things. Some people do like color ramps, other people do, sort of name things and so on, but kind of doesn't matter. From a typography standpoint, it's just like regular tokens, except instead of just one value that sort of travels together, what we're doing with typography is we go, oh, font family, font weight, font size, and line height, as well as letter spacing or text transform optionally, that all sort of travel together as a group. This is similar to how design tools work and their sort of styles as well. So that's tier 1. And then at tier 2, what we're doing is we're establishing this kind of middle layer. This is, we kind of call it like a semantic layer or usage layer or a theme layer or sort of something. And what we're doing at this layer is taking those tier 1 values and starting to apply those to what a user interface does and what a user interface needs. So we're able to sort of define this however we would like, but you can see I'm doing things like theme, color, background, brand, and I'm mapping that to Starbucks Green. So if Starbucks Green, Starbucks goes, you know what, we're doing purple. From here on out, it's purple the whole way. Anywhere there's green, we want to do purple, right? Historically, that would be kind of a very fraught exercise. So with this kind of language in between, what we're able to do is a very kind of sophisticated mapping where you could, okay, where there's green, we're going to sort of pull that out and do purple instead. And you could sort of identify the stuff, background colors versus content like text or icons or whatever versus border. And then you're also able to do things like border radius values and other sort of shared common patterns across all of our components. Similar to what we talked about with tier 1, typography is a little bit different, but the same. It just kind of involves like a mix-in or sort of something like that in code to be able to say, like, we want our body text to be mapped to this value, right? What this does is helps kind of create that separation. A lot of times you're like, our heading 1 styles are this. And it's like, but it's not in a heading 1, it's an H3, and I don't want it to be like, This kind of gets you out of that game. What you're able to do is sort of establish, you sort of pick those things apart and are able to sort of map them sort of in a more sophisticated way. And then sort of tier 3, what that does is this is the component layer. So now what we're able to do is we're able to say, okay, our primary button background, we're going to set that to our theme, color, background, brand, right? Our branded band, which is just like a box with the brand color applied to it, we're able to sort of map it to that same value, right? So again, if Starbucks goes from green to purple, done, right? Same thing with things like, border colors, where you're able to have like all of your form controls, for instance, all sort of listening to the same tier 2 value. So that way, let's say accessibility test comes back and it's like, hey, our borders on our form fields aren't passing adequate sort of contrast levels. We need to darken those up. You're able to sort of make sure that happens and sort of beef those up in one place, and that will sort of propagate out to all of your form controls. Same thing with border radius, right? So you're able to sort of say, our border radius for our theme is 8 pixels or whatever, and then the card can listen to that, the button can listen to that, your form controls can listen to that, so it's 8 pixels across the board, which is pretty cool. So what this translates to, I don't know if you ever had Highlights magazine as a kid, but it's like, I distinctly remember these kind of kids games where you're just kind of drawing from one column to another and trying to match these things. Find the animal and find the home that the animal lives in. And you're like, okay. And that's what we do professionally now. So just to sort of like spell this out, right? So it's like you have this tier 1 value, it's going to these other sort of values, and then individual components will then sort of subscribe to that sort of tier 2 thing. And the cool thing is that when you have this setup in place, the component library stays stable, meaning that like if you need to make sort of tweaks to your look and feel, that's more like aesthetic versus like a structural style change or something, like changing something to display flex or, sort of aligning the content or sort of something like that. More aesthetic stuff is kind of handled in its own layer. So these kind of like first 2 tiers sort of almost operate as its own kind of little subsystem. And then that subsystem gets flowed through our component system. And what this unlocks is what we've done with Pfizer and Marriott and Condé Nast and Dotdash, Meredith, and a whole slew, NASDAQ, a bunch of other companies, is sort of setting this stuff up so that you're able to have as many brands as you want, as many themes as you want, and the component library sort of stays stable, right? The component library stays the same. And so for a company like Pfizer that has like 600 brands, the idea is like, yeah, you can support 600 distinct brands using the exact same design system, which is pretty cool if you think about it. So how do we do this? Tools. I'm not going to dwell on design tools. I will just say that if you're not using Figma, you're either actively trying to move your organization to it. It's like you're either there on Figma or you're looking through the window like Tiny Tim going, beautiful roast dinner, and you're on the outside in the cold. The laughter is sadness, I could tell. Get your companies to go to Figma. They really are doing just way better of a job in the design system department than most everybody else. 2 plugins. Figma doesn't have this kind of capability built right into it. There's a plugin called Themo that allows you to sort of create these sort of semantic values for things like color and stuff, which are really cool. And then there's another plugin called Themer that allows you to sort of switch between those token sets. And so what this looks like in practice is this is this Themo, and you kind of have all of these things sort of available to you, and you're able to sort of choose which token value you want to choose. So what that allows you to do is at the component level kind of establish that tier 2 value, and then whatever that sort of tier 1 to tier 2 relationship is, it will just sort of automatically update based on that stuff, which is really, really cool. So that's as far as I'm going to get into design tools this time, sorry. On the code side, there's a couple tools out there. There's Theo by San Francisco's own Salesforce. I don't know why I said that, but there's that tool, and then there's another tool by the folks at Amazon called Style Dictionary, and that's increasingly what I see in my client work is a lot of people adopting Style Dictionary. And so what these tools do is sort of store our tokens in this kind of format agnostic way, and then what we're able to do is kind of flow or sort of convert them to the appropriate format, whether that's CSS custom properties or Sass variables or iOS compatible things or Android compatible things in order to make all of this go. You with me so far? Is this it's like feels a little maybe like esoteric? So what I'm going to do is suffer in front of you all. So if you want to give me a second, what I'm going to do is open up my display here, and I am going to mirror my displays. Okay, you can all see my stuff? Yeah, all right, here we go. So I made a little demo just for you. Actually, let me get to the legacy theme. That has more of a laugh here. Whenever I switch themes in Storybook. So this is my like workshop environment. Here we go. All right. I don't, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Um, so ever since I was a little boy, I wanted to mint NFTs. So, in fact, wait here. Let me go down here. I know nothing. It's just like full disclosure. I know nothing about this world at all. And whenever I was like, what demo am I going to put together for this? I thought it would be funny, I guess. And like, I was like, well, maybe as part of making this demo, I'll learn a little something about NFTs. No, I did not. So I just kind of rolled with like my ignorance. And but yeah, this is true. It's like, again, ever since I was a little boy, I wanted to follow in granddad's and dad's footsteps, minting NFTs. And it's a family affair. So, anyways, so what we have here is some of the best web design you've ever seen, and this is kind of our legacy theme because the big deal, the big news. Oh wait, let me switch over to it before I sort of announce that sort of big news stuff. We also have, this gets into our marketing homepage, right? We have this like big splashy thing. We need cards. We need like the ability to sort of look at all this cool stuff and tell our story and, you know, brand story and all of that. And then we also have some sort of like back office kind of stuff, right? We have like our actual applications that whenever people are like, we make apps, I'm like, so you put data tables on a page and forms, right? Yeah, that's what we mean. Okay, all right, cool. I always like try to make that distinction because people like to make it like sort of hype themselves up like we're doing this stuff you couldn't possibly conceive in your tiny little peon brain. The kinds of web applications we create here. And it's like, let me guess. Tables and forms and charts. God damn. Got me. So anyway, so we got some good stuff going on here. We got Phil Bucks. Shout out to Phil. Phil created his own cryptocurrency. He doesn't know this yet, but he did. In fact, I actually minted an NFT of every speaker at Smashing Conf. I needed some inventory, and so I created NFTs out of every speaker. And I probably should have asked their permission to do so, but I didn't. But I'm sorry, that's just kind of how this all works. Like Granddad used to say, if you can't stand the heat, stay off the blockchain. I'm so sorry. So anyways, all right, so our big news, like our family's big news is that this little idea, Crazy Brad's Discount NFT Emporium, got some funding, right? Got some big funding, and we are able to sort of grow up as a company. And so what we did is we created a new theme that you can see in my little storybook here. We have a legacy theme and then a rebrand. And what rebrand is doing, if I sort of come over to my code editor here and sort of kick that up a little bit, that's kind of recompiling all of my design tokens behind the scenes. I'll sort of show this in a little bit more detail here. But what it's doing is sort of compiling that sort of new theme. And then what we get is a less Comic Sans, less lime green, less bright pink. And this is starting to feel a little bit more legitimate, dare I say, right? So that's pretty cool. Again, the markup hasn't changed at all. All we've done is sort of created a couple different themes in order to sort of make this happen. Let me just see, I sort of like have some like weird web inspector stuff going on. So this looks a little better, we'll say. That's subjective, actually. But I'll take it a step further. I didn't get a chance to sort of like elegantly, I will sort of just dynamically swap in a couple new images just to sort of take this one step further to sort of make this happen, make it real official. I mean, look at that. The guy's holding a thing, a city, that says NFT. It doesn't get more official than that. We'll update our tout images too. Forgive my dust. I wanted to have sort of an automagical thing of that. All right. More just like Google searches for NFTs are something else, really something else. Like I was doing like NFT logos, NFT, like it just bananas stuff. Just like, I don't know. All right. So here we go. Here's our new rebranded Crazy Brad's Discount NFT Emporium is now is now a legit company, just like that. So this is important. And then if we sort of come over to our inventory sort of section, right? We're able to say, oh, okay, right, this is starting to feel good. This actually feels kind of sort of like, you know, a normal web app and stuff. So we're able to sort of have and pretty elegantly sort of create these distinct experiences, all by just kind of ripping out the sort of design language specific stuff, the Comic Sans, the lime green, and it's just sort of treating that as its own layer. So what I'll do is just kind of like a tiny little tour. Let me sort of start from scratch here. This is just our sort of design system kind of thing. So we got a components folder with the kinds of things that you would expect to see in a component library. We got your accordions, we got your alerts, we got your badges, you got your bands. I should make NFTs of all of these components too. Is that how that works? Can I like charge people money whenever they use my accordion component? That's how this works, right? But yes, so we got these things. And inside of one of those, right, you'll sort of have like a badge.scss and stuff. And then you'll kind of see your kind of standard fare. Let me sort of kick it up a little bit more. You'll see kind of standard fare kind of styles. But what you'll see is we're going, oh, okay. At this layer, we have our components listening to our sort of tier 2 token values, right? So theme border radius is what badge is listening to. And sort of our background is theme, color, background, utility, information. We could talk a little bit more about that in a second. But the real sort of magic happens at this layer, right? So we sort of have a legacy thing, and you can see we have 3 distinct layers. So what we're doing is we sort of have, this is Style Dictionary, by the way. So what we have is, okay, I got BF, Brad Frost, color, brand, lime, fuchsia, yellow. You could do like color ramps and stuff like this. Again, like you could kind of do whatever you want at this sort of tier 1 value. Here's our neutral color palettes or like little grayscale type things. Here's some other colors that we like to sort of throw out there just for things like utility colors like errors and stuff like that. The cool thing is that we kind of built a little thingy to make it a little easier to kind of peruse this stuff. Why does this keep happening? My like web inspector's coming. So what we could see, well, let me switch back the themes because we were looking at the legacy theme. So this should switch over to Comic Sans and update its colors in just a second. There we go. Much better. Much better. All right. So you could kind of see, here's my lime, here's my fuchsia, here's my yellow, all of this stuff, right? So this just sort of dumps everything out on the table. Here are all of the colors that this design language can wield. Some of it, not all of it, is going to get used, right? But it's sort of similar, right? We have things like border widths, right? So we could be like, here's all of the border widths that we can use throughout our experience. Here's all of our border radius values that we can use. Here's like different like layout things, like the max width for your content container so it doesn't go all Craigslist and sort of bleed off the page, right, whenever you go full screen. Box shadows, look at that gorgeous one. As well as our sort of like typography presets. right? So we're able to just sort of say, okay, typography preset 0. We've played around with like a bunch of different naming conventions. That's really like the hard part about all of this, is just kind of arriving at names. Naming is hard. Should come as no surprise. But you could kind of see this is very kind of agnostic sort of format for all of this stuff. We're basically just saying like typography preset, like what are these things used for? Don't know. Like they're not, at this stage, it's just a name. It's just kind of like a definition of what this thing is. And it's really only at the sort of tier 2 layer that we're starting to like take these things and actually start mapping them to real world usage patterns. So we have things like theme typography display, theme typography display bold, theme typography display large, typography display extra large, headlines and titles. And we kind of have been like sort of increasingly sort of splitting those things out. That's like one of the things with supporting marketing sites. Whenever marketing sites are like, we couldn't possibly use the design system because we have special needs. And we're like, well, what are those special needs? We have big type. Like, okay, all right, we could sort you out. We could sort you out. And that's where we've actually sort of found sort of stratifying those things a little bit sort of into this kind of display thing as this kind of almost like marketing specific things that like web apps aren't going to use sort of big chunky jumbo sort of display tokens. It's fine. They could all hang out there. That's I think like a little bit of the spirit, not just with like tokens and sort of things like that, but also components in general. Whenever we sort of run into these situations where he's like, again, these sort of naysayers are like, oh, you have no idea, our products things are so specific, like we couldn't, it can't accommodate us, and we use this stuff and not this stuff. I like to use the analogy of like tools in a basement or a tool shed or whatever. The homepage needs certain tools in order to do the job that it's trying to do, right? That hero, these cards, this sort of feature, that marquee. I was like, I wonder if the marquee tag still works. It does, as it happens. So that's what, just in case you needed to know. But you could see that it's like, okay, the design system has a hero component, it has a card component, it has a feature block kind of component. It has these things in place. And then another product with different needs, right? Data tables and filters, toolbars and form controls and things like that can use those, right? In the same way that tools in a basement or tools in a tool shed, it's like sometimes you're fixing the toilet and you need a monkey wrench and you need crescent wrenches and you need sort of this stuff. Other times you're fixing your roof and you need a claw hammer and you need, a circular saw and stuff like that. They all live in the same tool shed, right? You just kind of pick the different ones for the job. So it's not that hard of a concept, but boy, oh boy, a lot of Fortune 500 companies really twist themselves into knots about all of this stuff. So anyways, so coming back to tokens, that was a little bit of a detour. We kind of have these things, right, in place. We have these presets. And what we're able to do, this is the contract, right? This is like every piece of typography that we're going to need, right? So body text, right? Kind of self-explanatory. This is like the default body text for the entire experience. And then we also have this like kind of like footnote or like fine print kind of version or whatever. And what we're doing here is we're just kind of like mapping that sort of footnote token to a smaller thing from our tier 1 values. So that's really all this game is just kind of playing that little mix and match game, drawing those lines between those different token layers. And what you're able to do is, again, just kind of support wildly different looks and feels. I mean, for a brand like Condé Nast or a brand like Pfizer, it's like their marketing is like everything, like their brand is everything. Like the reason why people go to the New Yorker is because it's the New Yorker brand, right? The reason why people go to Vanity Fair, this is the Vanity Fair brand, right? So it's like those brands are are sacrosanct. You know, you can't mess with those. You can't compromise with those. So it's really important to have this pretty extreme level of sort of flexibility. And it really kind of comes down to this sort of contract in between the different layers. To just sort of show off what the sort of color design tokens look like. So you have sort of background colors. So we're like, okay, neutral default, that's basically like our body background color. We have sort of a neutral subtle, which is like, this language is hard-earned. We've been doing this for like years and years. And so getting to things like neutral subtle means like, oh, it's kind of like a soft neutral that could either be like sort of a button background sort of disabled state, or it could be like a band that's sort of separating a section of a page versus like the sort of regular background content and stuff like that. We've got brand colors, we've got brand accents, and you could kind of do this a number of different ways, but things like utility success, utility information, utility warning, utility error, all of that stuff plays out in components like this, where we sort of have an alert, and then you could sort of see the different variations of that, right? So all of those things are being mapped to the appropriate things. And one theme might look like this. The next theme might not need those, you know, those sort of colored backgrounds, and they want to just do white. You could map it to white and call it a day. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool what all this unlocks. Yeah, I mean, feel like we've beaten this into the ground enough, right? So we will turn and kind of wrap up here. I think it's important to, yeah, here we go. I think it's important to just sort of recognize that it's like, this is hard work. This is hard earned. Everybody's on their own sort of design system journey. That's how I structure my workshop. Is just like everybody's kind of going through these phases of just kind of doing the hard work to even just convince people to do this in the first place. And then you have to plan it, and then you have to sort of go down the road. And like, we tend to come in whenever people are sort of, you know, on that journey and sort of in the middle of it. And a lot of times it's like kind of done in a certain way. And whenever we come in, it's like, oh, hey, have you like thought about, you know, maybe this won't be Starbucks green next year? And people are like, shit, don't tell me that, you know, like it's hard earned. So I do want to sort of like recognize that this is really tough. If you want to like learn more about the mechanics of this, I did write a post, and I have another post I'm hoping to publish while I'm here, just as kind of preparing for this, to sort of talk about the different types of theming like we got into. So you can check out this post. If you're curious about design tokens, rather than, if there's one resource to check out, Stu Robson has a really beautiful roundup called Awesome Design Tokens, and it kicks you out to all these articles and tools and the W3C specification and like all this other stuff, which is really, really cool. So if you're interested in design tokens and want to like learn more about all that, there's some really great stuff there. So again, like, this is hard. It's like, it's very, very challenging to make this stuff go, but the payoff is really huge, because again, every single one of those buttons represent human beings, finite time, energy, resources, reinventing a freaking button. So let's not do that. Let's like solve the button, build in the right levels of like flexibility so that we're able to sort of move on to bigger and better problems. That's that kind of promise of design systems in general, but we tend to sort of fall in these traps whenever things are a little too rigid or brittle. I love closing my talks with this just because it's true. This stuff is hard, and we just like constantly have to challenge our assumptions, challenge our architecture, challenge our tools, challenge our mentality as we sort of go into our work. And this is a really challenging aspect of our job, is that just the line keeps moving, the techniques keep changing, and it seems to be evolving at this just kind of ever expanding sort of rate where it's just really, really hard to keep up. I don't know about you, but I feel that way, right? But even though it is really difficult to keep up with this, it is also important especially given the last couple years we've all been through, man, this is a hell of a lot of fun, right? I don't know if you play with Lego blocks as a kid, but it's like, I sure did. And again, highlights magazines, drawing lines from one thing to the other. It's like, we're playing and we're getting paid for it. Like, there's about a billion other jobs that we could be doing that isn't as fun as this. And again, I really hope that you we take these next couple days to really celebrate just how awesome our jobs are, how awesome it is to be together and to talk shop and nerd out together. Like, this is a long time coming. So with that, everybody, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Nice. Thank you so much, Brad. We're off to a flying start. Can I steal you just for a few short minutes to chat?
That'll cost you 500 Phil bucks.
I'm excited by it, but I'm also worried about the arbitrage that might be happening. The different values of the different speakers and attendees. I'm very nervous. We do just have a few quick minutes before we'll be moving on. But there are some great questions that came into the chat, and quite a few of them were talking about like process and human factors and environments that these things live in. And, you know, I guess maybe the place that I would start is, you know, we saw what kind of systems can evolve and what the situation could become over time.
Yeah.
Is there a right time or a wrong time in the life of a project or in the life of a product for a design system to be introduced? Can you do it too early, like optimizing too early? And can it be, is there a time where it's like, oh, it's too late?
Yeah.
Is there a sweet spot, I guess, is the question.
There absolutely is a sweet spot. The too early tends to come in the form. So it's like I duck my head into all sorts of companies across the world. And so I get to see like every flavor of too early and too late and too wrong and whatever. The too early tends to come in the form of people kind of feeling like they need to go off to the side and create a design system and then start plugging it into their work.
Right.
And it's just not how it goes. Like I've like worked with like banks and they're like, you'd be proud of us, Brad. We stood up an atoms team and a molecules team and an organisms team.
Amazing.
I'm like, no, shut it down, shut it down. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So it's like you really do need to build a design system through the lens of something real.
Right.
We call those like pilot projects, and that's actually what atomic design is all about. Is like really truly connecting the design systems component library and all of the sort of like low-level reusable components with the actual honest-to-goodness software products that people will use. And you click on that button on a real website that you visit with your own eyes and click on that button and you're clicking the design systems button. So it's like it needs to be done through the lens of something real. But there's a sweet spot in that process because if like you're already, like we already are design complete and our engineers have this eye-watering Jira board in front of them, it's like the ship has sailed, and poor engineers. So it's like you really do want to go into a design system pilot project with this kind of like sort of sweet spot of we know we're going to do this work. Mm-hmm. We haven't started that work yet.
Yeah.
And by way of doing this work, whether it's redesigning the checkout flow and, that would give us form fields, that would give us like a stepper, that would give us like a button group, that would give us like these things. That sounds like a good idea.
Right.
So you could kind of use that and plan for it and really sort of like very intentionally sort of build the design system.
That real context is critical. Okay,
Yep.
I'll ask one more question and then we'll let you go.
Yep.
Because you talked about all of these different tools living in the same basement. I think you talked about. And one of the questions that people had that was mirrored my own actually is the idea of many brands living atop one particular system.
Yes.
And you even alluded to, everyone's a special butterfly.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a technical problem? Is it a human problem to try and make sure that people feel that they've got an opportunity to express their brand without feeling kind of their wings are clipped? Or do you have any more kind of tips on that?
Yeah,
because I feel like it's a common problem.
Yeah. It absolutely is. And increasingly, we really think of design systems as layer cakes. And the kind of like core component layer and like token system are kind of very like low levels on the layer cake. But then there's like kind of layers on top that could be like product specific, right? So material design is a good example. You go to material design, which powers Google Maps, Gmail,
Yeah.
YouTube,
Yeah.
all of these like very distinct and unique products, and you don't see like a video share toolbar in material design, right? That like lives at a layer on top of, that's building on top of material design. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's absolutely possible to have very sort of product specific things that really are tuned to solving the specific product goals and stuff.
Yep.
But it's all using the same kind of common fair components, right? Or sort of just, you know, again, back to the tool analogy. Phillips head screwdrivers, you know, like claw hammers, like
Yep.
these like kind of like just nuts and bolts kind of components, and then they can be assembled into what I kind of call recipes that are very sort of more like sort of product specific compositions. Like, oh, we need a product card that has this flag in the top right corner
Yep.
and has these things. So yeah,
Awesome.
that's
It's
possible.
It's really interesting space to be working in. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap up there. If I had time, I would ask you, you know, you said Crazy Brad's NFT Emporium got some funding recently. I'm 99% certain you were joking. In the break, please get me to 100%. But for now, please, everyone, join me in thanking the wonderful Brad Frost, everyone.
Thank you.